think we all ask this question: what can I do about the poverty and inequality I see around me? The biggest impact we see in addressing the problem of rising inequality should come from government. So, the next question is, how can an individual like me influence the policy decisions of government? Currently, South Africa is one of the most unequal societies in the world, with a Gini coefficient of 0.70, based on data from the South African Income and Expenditure Survey of 2013. The Gini coefficient is a calculation intended to represent the income distribution of people within a country, and is the most commonly used measure of inequality. The result is a number between 0 and 1, where 0 reflects the perfect equality, that is, where everyone is having the same income, and 1 reflects perfect inequality, that is, where one person is having all the income and everyone else having nothing. The Gini coefficient, however, only measures income inequality, and inequality has many different dimensions, including race, gender, geography, and economy, which rarely work in isolation. This inequality is not surprising for South Africa, following decades of apartheid policies designed to subdue, exclude, and hold back the participation and advancement of the black majority. The South African Network on Inequality, Sani in short, is a network of civil society organizations, community-based organizations, and other organized citizens platforms. Sani seeks to empower South African CSOs to engage policymakers on specific issues of inequality. To fight inequality, Sani works in 3 thematic areas. First one is economic policy and governance, including tax justice. The second is land and agrarian reform, including food and climate justice. And the third is social security, including national minimum wage and decent living levels. Sani is linked to the global program called Empowering Civil Society Networks in an Unequal Multipolar World, or Ecsn, which aims to reinforce the ability of CSO networks to represent their national constituencies around development and inequality issues. The Ecsn is implemented in BRICSAM countries. BRICSAM is an acronym standing for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, as in BRICS, and added to these is Indonesia and Mexico in the case of BRICSAM countries. Like in most BRICS countries, economic growth in South Africa is disturbingly slow and non-inclusive, resulting in no significant redistribution of wealth. 50% of the population live below the poverty line, and 90% is black. There are also 17 million people on social grants. Alongside such poverty, 10% of South Africa's richest and approximately 68% of South Africa's total income. This has created pockets of extreme poverty, unemployment, and limited access to essential services. Despite strong efforts by the state to reverse the injustice of the past through targeted socio-economic policies, there is still a lot that needs to be done to tackle this deepening inequality. As a constitutional democracy, South Africa's National Development Plan, or the NDP in short, envisions a society where the attainment of equitable and sustainable development could be realized through active citizenship. Through active citizenry and holding governments accountable, ordinary citizens can contribute to the eradication of inequality. Empowering the ordinary citizen or civil society organization to effect change from the ground up is the key. citizens and civil society are not as powerless as we might think. When citizens get organized around an issue, civil society organizations are formed. And when civil society organizations get organized through networks like Sani, their influencing power increases. Sani believes that addressing the gap between the richest people and the poorest, and the impact this gap has on other pervasive inequalities between men and women and between races, which makes life for those at the bottom unbearable, is an imperative of our time. The good news is that this growing inequality is not inevitable. It can be resolved. In 2010, South Africa joined forces with the BRIC countries. The BRIC was formed soon after the global meltdown of 2008. The chief ambition of this political entity of the BRICS is the reform and democratization of international financial institutions. In simple terms, the BRICS is the association of 5 major emerging national economies. Among other key international influential moments like G20, WTO, financing for development, Sani and the Ecsn BRICSAM have identified the BRICS and a forum to conduct evidence-based advocacy for the eradication of inequality. So, let's look at the power pipeline in South Africa so we can understand where CSOs can apply pressure effectively and influence policy decisions in South Africa and in the BRICS countries. The first one is formal power. In the South African context, citizens and CSOs can influence policymakers through formal government structures like parliament and direct engagements with ministers in what is referred to as invited spaces. For example, council meetings in local municipalities and integrated development planning meetings. The second is international power. Economic pressures from countries that want to trade with and invest in South Africa can influence policy decisions. International donor countries have some ability to direct power, especially where the agenda of the donors and social justice campaigners intersect. Civil society can also influence governments in international fora. The third is informal power. In the informal space, economic power plays a big role. Businesses and wealthy individuals cannot tell governments what to do, but government needs businesses to create wealth, which gives businesses power. The most important part of informal power lies with citizens. These are the people most affected by the policies from above and understand the hardships and inequalities better than anyone else. Citizens that are organized are able to influence decisions. Evidence from other societies shows that where poor and working people are organized, they are able to achieve favorable policies. And this is where we can make a difference. Let us look at an example within the BRICS to show how active citizenry can ensure that civil society can influence international fora to reduce inequality. The first major institutional initiative of the BRICS is the new development bank called the BRICS Development Bank, a logical extension of the raison d'etre of the BRICS itself. The BRICS Development Bank aims at mobilizing resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies and developing countries in a manner that will supplement the existing efforts of multilateral and regional financial institutions for global growth and development. The new BRICS Development Bank has an opportunity to realize a transformative developmental agenda by 1. Promoting sustained and inclusive growth. 2. Promoting gender equity, women's rights, and other gender disparities. 3. Investing in infrastructure that directly benefits those affected by poverty and exclusion. 4. addressing inequality within BRICS countries and across the developing world. 5. Calling for an explicit policy on international cooperation and investment, informed by public policy debates. 6. Promoting a radically democratic government structure. 7. Creating environmental and social safeguards and mechanisms for accountability and redress. 8. Defining the terms of engagement within the private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders. The risks associated with the BRICS Development Bank include the absence of public information and debate, a poor track record in relation to monitoring and evaluation of international projects, and the engagement of stakeholders and participation of communities, as well as a deviation from globally agreed principles. So, how can civil society ensure that the opportunities associated with the new development bank are maximized and the risks mitigated? South Africa will host the African Regional Center of the new BRICS Development Bank. CSOs have a chance to directly influence policymakers to effectively invest in infrastructure in South Africa and Africa as a continent in order to address inequality. Civil society can also use the insider-outsider advocacy strategy to address inequality in BRICS, where the insider approach aims at working with government to influence policy, and the outsider is to mobilize ordinary citizens and CBOs to influence government outside of the government structures. So, in conclusion, if we look back at the original question, how can we make a difference? We see that if you are an ordinary citizen, then joining a civil society organization or a CSO and joining the South African Network on Inequality as a CSO is a step in the right direction towards fighting for the eradication of inequality in our country and the world. Using structures like BRICS, the New Development Bank, and other key international influential moments like the G20, WTO, and others. We need the voice of every citizen. We need every citizen to be active to attain equitable and sustainable development and equality for those that need it the most. For further information on this, please visit our website at www.sainequality.com or contact us directly. We would love to hear from you.